There is a situation that comes up again and again. A man meets an older woman, and everything about her feels different. She is attractive, self-assured, and carries a kind of presence that younger women often haven't developed yet. The connection feels intense, almost electric. She understands him, communicates directly, and seems clear about what she wants. And, at least on the surface, she wants him. By all appearances, she seems like the perfect match. But somewhere in the background, his instincts start whispering. A quiet, persistent feeling that something is not quite right. Instead of listening, he brushes it aside. That moment, when he ignores that inner voice, is often where things begin to unravel. She is not just slightly older, the gap is significant. She has a history, past relationships that didn't work out, including a marriage and an engagement. Those experiences have left their mark, bringing along emotional weight like anxiety or difficulty trusting. On top of that, there may be differences in health, lifestyle, or long-term priorities. And beneath the excitement and connection, there is an unspoken pressure, time. A sense of urgency that doesn't belong to him but slowly starts to feel like it does. This is not just one isolated scenario. It's a pattern that tends to repeat itself when men become involved with mature women who feel they have reached a critical point in life, where time feels limited. Most men don't notice it, not because they lack intelligence, but because they are focused on how the relationship makes them feel. And strong emotions can easily cloud judgment. To be clear, this is not about labeling older women negatively. The real point is that certain dynamics can emerge in relationships with a large age gap, and many men walk into them without fully thinking things through. That instinctive feeling, the one that raises concerns, isn't flawed. In fact, it is often the most reliable signal they have. The real question is why it gets ignored. The truth is, the warning signs are rarely hidden. They are usually visible from the start. What often gets overlooked is the deeper motivation behind the situation. For some women in their mid to late 30s who haven't had children, a change can happen. It's not just emotional, it is biological. The awareness of limited time becomes more pronounced, and the body reinforces that urgency. When that biological pressure combines with social expectations, friends starting families, questions from relatives, constant reminders, it can create a sense of scarcity. And scarcity changes behavior. It can lead to moving quickly in relationships, overlooking incompatibilities, or pushing for commitment sooner than usual. Conversations about the future may come up early, and there may be an underlying urgency that is hard to ignore. It is not necessarily manipulation, it is pressure. And here's a difficult but important distinction: the connection you feel may be real, but it doesn't automatically mean the relationship is grounded in long-term compatibility. Chemistry can be powerful, but it isn't the same as alignment in values, timing, or life goals. In some cases, what she's responding to isn't fully who he is as an individual but what he represents: stability, health, readiness, or the potential for a future that aligns with her timeline. That doesn't make the connection fake, but it does mean there may be additional layers driving the relationship. Pay attention to your instincts, and take the time to look beyond how something feels in the moment. Strong emotions can be compelling, but clarity comes from understanding the bigger picture. She isn't trying to hurt you, she's trying to address a need in her own life. And right now, you happen to be the most accessible solution. That might sound harsh, but it is better to recognize it early than deal with the consequences later. Think about it logically for a moment: there are billions of people in the world and countless potential partners. Yet you have convinced yourself that this one person, despite clear complications, is somehow irreplaceable. That's not necessarily because she is uniquely perfect. More often, it is because a scarcity mindset is influencing your thinking. And there's a big difference between genuine connection and the fear of not finding something else. Biologically speaking, fertility is highest in a woman's early 20s, and it gradually declines over time. As the years pass, the risks increase and the chances decrease. That's simply how human biology works. It's not something you caused, but it can become something you're affected by if you choose to step into that situation. Many men don't even realize they're part of this dynamic until they're already deeply involved, at which point it becomes much harder to step away without complications. And what makes this more complex is that the real change doesn't happen later, it begins much earlier, often in ways that aren't immediately obvious. It starts with something called frame. In any relationship, there is always an underlying structure that determines how things operate. Frame refers to whose perspective shapes the relationship, whose priorities set the direction, whose timeline dictates decisions, and whose needs are treated as most urgent. In every dynamic, one person's frame tends to dominate. If you look at this situation honestly, her timeline is already influencing the pace. Her emotional needs may require extra attention due to past experiences. There may be differences in health, lifestyle, or values that require you to adjust more than she does. Meanwhile, you might find yourself overanalyzing everything, trying to justify concerns, minimize red flags, or convince yourself that things will work out if you just think it through enough. That's often a sign you're already operating within her frame, even if you haven't consciously recognized it. There's also another pattern at play, what some refer to as a fixer mentality. It's when a man sees someone with clear challenges and, instead of stepping back, feels compelled to help, heal, or make things work. The intention behind this is usually positive. It comes from wanting to care, support, and show up fully. But it can become harmful when it turns into trying to repair someone else's unresolved issues. Because no matter how strong your feelings are, you can't fix another person's emotional struggles through effort or affection alone. Supporting someone who is actively working on themselves is one thing. Trying to rescue someone is something else entirely. And when emotions are intense, that distinction can become difficult to see. There's an important aspect many men don't seriously consider until it becomes unavoidable, sometimes even in a courtroom. Having a child with someone, especially a partner you're not completely certain about, isn't just a romantic decision. It's also a legal commitment, a financial responsibility, and something that can shape decades of your life. Legal systems, particularly in family matters, don't operate based on emotions or intentions. They follow established rules and structures, regardless of how genuine someone's efforts may have been. Many men have found themselves in difficult situations after relationships ended, despite believing they were doing everything right. They built lives, started families, and invested deeply, only to later face limited time with their children and significant financial obligations. When they reflect on how they got there, a common theme emerges: early warning signs were overlooked. Strong emotional connection took precedence over careful judgment, and concerns that seemed small at the beginning became significant later on. Another important dynamic to understand is how relationships can shift over time, especially when one partner is driven by a strong sense of urgency. Once certain goals are achieved, the nature of the relationship may change in ways that weren't initially expected. This is why self-awareness is so important. If you look back on past experiences, you may notice moments where warning signs were present, but you chose to ignore them. Recognizing that pattern is often where real personal growth begins. Before moving forward in a situation like this, there's one question worth asking yourself honestly: if the physical attraction or strong chemistry weren't there, would you still choose this relationship? Would you still accept the differences, the challenges, and the uncertainties? Or would your perspective change? Answering that question truthfully can bring a lot of clarity. Instincts, often referred to as gut feelings, play a valuable role here. They aren't driven by emotion or impulse, but by subtle observations and patterns your mind has already picked up on. However, it's common for people to override those instincts, especially when the emotional connection feels rare or meaningful. Instead of stepping back, they may invest more time and energy, hoping things will align. But avoiding those internal signals doesn't make concerns disappear, it usually just postpones dealing with them. And over time, the emotional and practical stakes tend to grow, making decisions more difficult. If children become part of the situation, the complexity increases significantly, as the connection between both people continues regardless of the relationship's outcome. At the core of many of these situations is something deeper, a sense of scarcity. It's the belief that this connection is rare, that walking away might mean losing something irreplaceable, or that future opportunities won't feel the same. But that fear can be misleading. There are countless potential partners in the world, and convincing yourself that only one person can bring happiness, despite clear incompatibilities, often reflects limitation in perspective rather than reality. Scarcity can push people to accept situations they might otherwise question if they felt more confident in their options. Recognizing that you do have choices, and giving yourself permission to consider them, can completely change how you approach relationships and decisions moving forward.